What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we are stiffening up the chassis. We're making it race ready. We are putting in the Watson roll cage into the RTR Spec dose. Our friends at FedEx just delivered us a little something for the RTR Spec 2. And if you guys look right here, you will see it is our Watson Racing roll cage. Now this is a 4-point cage. It's just going to be going in the back seat where we have the seat delete. But I'm looking forward to this. Let's open it up. I would have to go and grab the one knife that I have that isn't sharp. Ooh, that's fancy. As we see here, I did go with the black powder coated roll cage. I thought about going with the silver because it was probably about $100 cheaper, but then I knew when I got it what I'd end up doing is trying to powder coat it or spray paint it black. So I figured, I might as well go ahead and spend the extra money and get the black one because that's what I'm gonna use anyway. This packaging didn't rattle around. There wasn't too much of it that dented the box, but at the same time, it didn't puncture it, so that's always good. We need to start getting some stuff taken apart, so we're gonna start with this trunk area. It calls to take out everything in here. Panel here, you have like 4 of these little things here. I only have 3 because I've lost one at some point in time, and that should remove this, and you can start taking out this plastic panel here. It has these little hooks here, so you're gonna need to pull it from the top up and forward. To get the cage in, we're gonna have to pop these seats back out, which is why I did not bolt them in last week, and then finish removing out our section here of the rear seat delete. That way we can get everything out of the trunk as well. On the inside of the seat, we have these 2 little screw-in tabs that we need to remove. These go over some little studs here on the inside of the car so that we can remove this section here. And then we have these 2 tree furs right here that we need to remove on either side. And we'll be able to pull this out, and then we can start removing this panel here because this will need to get trimmed to put in our half cage. Removing this panel here is pretty easy. All you have to do is just kind of pull on it starting back here because of the one clip that holds it in place here, and then everything else will snap out of place, and then you just have to pull up here on your kick panel so that you can get the section that goes right underneath there, and that whole panel comes out. Now what we're going to do is take our little body clip removal tool right here, pop up underneath these tree furs, and pop these things out, which will then release these here. Now, oh hey, that's that piece we're missing. So if you go onto like, I believe it's LMR, they show you to remove this section here. You need to remove this section here only when you're taking out the seat belts here. Since we had already done that in a previous video when we were putting in our rear seat delete, I don't have to do that right now. So here it is out of the box. Again, still nice packaging. Everything here is very well supported, taped up. I would assume this is our box of hardware. We're gonna get this here taken out so we can get it inside. One thing that we need to do here is we're gonna come through and start pulling up some of these pieces here, try and free them up. Also take out some of these little bolts here along the way, and then we need to set it up and see where we're gonna fit. I think we're definitely gonna have to trim back some of this glue, the seam seal right here, because the roll cage actually bolts over onto these stock pieces right here. So getting this main hoop in right here isn't gonna be too hard. The piece that's gonna take us a little bit of time though is the downward bars, because we do have to mark out and drill holes for those, as well as then set up our rear seat delete and cut out those holes so it'll pass through and look clean. With all the bolts out of the way now, I need to go through here and get rid of this seam sealer right here that goes up against this area in which we're going to be posting up our roll cage. So I'm going to go through and start scraping some of that free now. I've taken my not so sharp knife and I've gone through here and I've separated what I thought was everything, but clearly was not, as I missed a spot. Gone through and we've cleared out this so we can open it up, get some of these bars out here, try not to drop them on the ground. Probably just need Gabby here to hold camera, but she's out with some friends right now. Jesus Christ, people thinking they need friends. One thing I want to do here real quick before we get this thing in is just take a look at the quality of this build. We got it set in here, lean slightly forward ahead of our seatbelt bracket right here, which it does say I'm going to need to remove this cap right here. Another thing that it says is to read the instructions fully before starting this, which I did not, and I wish I had, because if you guys noticed in the clip before this when I was putting this in, I had this harness here in front there, and it actually needs to be back here, so I had to actually remove this, which meant opening that door over there and dropping it out the side so I could get underneath here, because this one here is a little bit tighter than the other side in terms of the wiring harness, and then pop it in and under. So now that we have that, I need to loosely put in our bolts here, our 6 bolts to hold this thing in place, and we can get that started. And it also needed to say that we need to make sure there's no clearance issues here with our ground wires, which on this side it doesn't appear as though there will be. Here is the main hoop in place. We have the bolts in there loosely, as well as most of the wiring harness back kind of where it needs to be. Next, we need to put in the down bars here, kind of snug them up so that we can get our measurements and know exactly where we need to drill our holes in the back. After we get all that set up, we're going to start notching up here to get the flat section of our rear seat delete in place, and then we're going to work on cutting out the holes. But first, let's get these rear down bars in here so we can start marking our positions. In place, we need to make sure that we center these legs here over a beam that runs across the bottom. That beam you can see right here with the spot welds. We need to make sure it's centered over that before we start drilling our holes. We're also going to have to clear away a little bit more of the seam sealer here, and it looks like a little bit of sound deadening right there to make sure that we have good clearance, and we'll be able to start bolting these down and drilling our holes. Drilling our holes and bolting it down. There's a certain order that has to go in. You can't start bolting down if you don't have no holes. Here with the car up in the air, what we're going to do is we're going to dislodge the brake line that goes through here. We just need to do that to make sure that we're going to get enough clearance so when the drill bit goes through, we're not going to have any issues. Also, always make sure that you use jack stands, because if you end up having something that doesn't have enough hydraulic fluid in it, it'll start to drop on you just like this one did. With holes drilled and everything test fitted, and what we need to do now is start modifying the body panel so we can get everything into place. Yeah, this one's a little bit dirty, probably from dog slobber. So what I'm gonna do is come through here, notch this out according to our directions. Where is it? Right there. So that we can do it. I've already done the passenger side just to make sure I was gonna do it right before I put this all on film and screwed everything up, and it actually worked. So we're gonna go through and do this one together. One of the items that I used here to do this, the angle across, was this drill bit right here. Well, it's not really a drill bit, it's more like a cutting bit that came with the Dremel. The other thing that I went ahead and used was this sanding wheel that also comes with the Dremel. I don't know what grit this is. It seems to be a fairly thick grit. I would assume probably about 80, maybe 120. And I use that to do the arch on the inside. First thing that you're going to need to do is feed in your trim piece through the trunk. I made the mistake of when I did the passenger side, I fed it through face up, and then I had to do a whole lot of twisting and finagling around to get it in there. So when you go to put this in, make sure that you feed it in face down. It makes it a lot easier to twist it around once you get it in there. Make sure you flex out this top piece here to get it up and around the seat belt. I need to wipe down some items, but we got it in here. There's a slight gap back here that I don't know what's creating it, that I don't have over on the passenger side. So I need to figure out what's going on with that. Other than that, everything is in here pretty good. There are a couple of clips back in like this section here. Make sure that you get those lined up before you start smacking it in place, and that'll make sure that everything lines up the way that it needs to. But this isn't looking too shabby. What we need to do next is get our rear seat delete up in here and in place, at least the backing. That way we can line everything up and we can start to cut our holes to run our downward bars out through the back and then get everything tidied up. Here's our trunk area. I still need to bolt in the top of the rear seat delete, but had to notch out down there just a little bit to make room for the legs, and we're looking good. So here we are, everything is fully assembled back into the car now. We have our seats, our headrests in place, everything is motorized, hooked up, and working the way that it needs to. I do need to test out the heated and cooled, make sure that still works though. In the back, we got everything set up. I do wish that the holes were a little bit cleaner back there for our roll cage where they run through. I may try and do something to try and tighten that up, but overall, I'm happy with the way the car turned out. There's some things I didn't get filmed, like me trimming up the rear seat delete, some of the drilling of the holes, lining up the brackets that go underneath, because it is a bracket that goes on the bottom that needs to be held up into place. There's a center bolt that goes in there to hold it in so that when you come up top to put in the bolt for the roll cage, everything's good. So the problem with that is Watson in the instructions says have a second person to hold that. Trust me, it is worth you finding a friend, make a friend, buy a friend, do whatever you need to do, as long as it is not illegal in your state, to get somebody to hold those bolts for you or hold that bracket for you, because you really do need somebody to do that. That's why a lot of this stuff didn't get filmed. It's because I was doing it on my own. Gabby was at work. Namdi was off somewhere in Texas doing work. Drew was off, I don't know, being responsible, doing family stuff, paying attention to his kids. Who does that? But in the end, it made everything a little bit longer. The drilling of the holes, you know what they say? Measure once, drill and cut 3, 5, 7 times. No, they don't say that because it's not a thing. Measure multiple times, drill once, cut once, and it made it a little bit difficult for me doing everything. I got rushed. I was getting frustrated, as everybody knows you do in the garage sometimes with projects like these. But everything that I feel was an error isn't anything that's going to make the cage unstable. Everything was really just cosmetic, and I was able to cover the majority of that up with the interior. So I'm not really hurt over that. And you can knock this out probably in a day. It took me a couple days because I had to stop. I had other things that were going on. Like me throwing wrenches out into the middle of my driveway. So make sure that you guys are hitting the bell notifications. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. This is a fun channel that everything keeps getting more and more fun, and you won't want to miss it. Trust me. Make sure to leave this video a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. I like to be interactive with you guys and gals, so let me know what you think of everything that's going on. That is it for this episode, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you in the next one. Peace.